This is the terrible reply God gives narcissists for hurting you so much. Please realize that when I speak to the narcissists directly at the beginning of this episode, I'm not speaking to you, the victim. But don't worry, the subject will eventually turn to you. Through our contacts with narcissists, we expect to uncover more information about the dark side of human nature. 5 very bad narcissistic habits will be emphasized in today's session. Some could take issue with the harsh language used to label people as evil, citing scientific grounds that forbid making such broad generalizations. On a scientific or spiritual level, however, the harm they cause to their victims is incalculable, completely unprecedented, and incomprehensible. Are you curious to know more about my perspective and where it came from? Until we get to the conclusion of the episode, stick with me. Get ready for a shock to the system. The first is the negative effects of solitude. I fail to get the rationale of deliberately severing someone from their loved ones. How could anyone even consider doing such a terrible thing, much less justify it? When someone intentionally excludes another individual from social interaction, a malicious aim is accomplished. The main issue is that you have no qualms about following out this plan. Why? Positioning oneself as the person's exclusive source of safety and support is the apparent solution. You control their finances, their emotions, their very being, and their brain, ensuring that they will always be dependent on you. They'll be forced to cling to you as a result, desperately trying to avoid being left alone. If you isolate them from their relatives, parents, and friends, the very people who may reveal the truth, you can be certain of keeping an iron grip on them through manipulation and brainwashing. You exaggerate your significance, making people think that only you pose a threat. They now believe that you are their sole hope for survival and that everyone else is their adversary. The height of wickedness is to make someone believe they are totally dependent on you and that no one else cares about them. Deliberately destroying their infrastructure in order to maintain complete control is abhorrent. What else might it be except the personification of evil? The deadly untruth comes next. How is it feasible to sacrifice someone else's insane behavior for the benefit of one's own objectives? It is an insult beyond measure when someone exploits their flawed perspective to exercise power and inflict suffering on others despite knowing on some level that it is skewed. Even though the victim is aware of good and wrong, they are nevertheless used as a tool. Through methods like gaslighting and projection, the abuser steadily erodes the victim's sense of reality. The victim's mind is soured with confusion and doubt, leaving the victim stranded in a sea of uncertainty. As the abuser gradually takes over their thinking, victims become totally reliant on the twisted narrative. The victim of abuse starts to doubt their own common sense and starts to rely more and more on the abuser's slanted opinions. Their sense of self is destroyed, and they end up reflecting the abuser's sinister viewpoints. The victim is reduced to a hollow shell as the abuser's malice erodes the victim's sense of worth, esteem, and identity. The total annihilation of one's own essence and personality is the ultimate manifestation of evil. I'm convinced that intentionally destroying someone else's identity is morally wrong. The third is the deceit of hypocrite. It is reprehensible behavior to assume many identities and to influence others to embrace one's quest for power. Even when they are aware of their own callousness, they consciously change their behavior to maintain control over their victims. Though ethically sophisticated, they merely make use of their goodness for their own gain. They choose the expedient path that only serves their own interests, despite being well aware of the suffering they cause others via their haughtiness, avarice, and arrogance. They purposefully withhold facts from their partners, spouses, and kids when doing so serves their interests. They are masters of deception, and they are aware that their lies have resulted in unspeakable misery and the loss of life. They completely disregard other people's emotions and values while they lie, deceive, and betray them. Their self-interest has distorted their perception of what is right and wrong. They don't give a damn about acting ethically upright. Instead, they put more importance on what would help them achieve their goals. If it will help them accomplish their goals, they are willing to sacrifice even their own lives. Such heinousness is unfathomable. Destruction of people's life in a heartless manner without regard for them is abhorrent. It is the height of dishonesty, a terrible loss of creativity, and a complete lack of integrity to change who you are in order to fool other people. Fourth, the shame of unfounded accusations. The height of evil is to falsely accuse someone only because they refuse to comply with your demands. When they finally realize your trick and escape from you, you keep looking among their friends and acquaintances for allies and supporters in an effort to recover control. Instead of putting effort into developing yourself, you would prefer to concentrate your efforts on discrediting your opponent. Even though you are aware that these charges are untrue, your need for vengeance and tenacity drive you to continue spreading untrue information about your victim until they are abandoned, without their name, job, or property. These horrific acts are only driven by your insane need for retribution. By doing this, you blatantly accept the evil that dwells in the depths of your own psyche. It's unfathomable why you wouldn't act once to obtain your desired outcome. If wrecking someone else's life and making them lose all they value in order to achieve your goals isn't evil, what is? These deliberate, cold actions reveal a nasty person who will stop at nothing to accomplish their objectives. The appearance of tranquility comes in fifth. To push a victim to the brink of insanity while requiring them to maintain an air of calm composure in public is the height of evil. You deftly assume the role of the helpless onlooker, pretending not to see their suffering in order to demonstrate your own innocence and give the impression that nothing has changed. The victim makes themselves seem to be the bad guy in the eyes of observers by sobbing and screaming and feeling absolutely powerless in the face of your assault. You keep them on the verge of submission while maintaining your composure and control. You take delight in knowing you've created a great story as your victim descends farther into suffering. You craftily manage your surroundings so that they appear negative and you appear to be the victim. It brings you warped joy to intentionally exploit their frailty and bring them infinite pain. When questioned about your actions, you claim that you were the victim who lost interest in the victim's histrionics. Playing the victim card allows you to conceal the severity of your mistreatment. On a moral level, the indescribable anguish brought on to the victim is repulsive. If not for these acts, what else could possibly characterize evil? Your behavior exemplifies how deceitful, cunning, and morally bankrupt you are. You deliberately project a facade of restraint, hiding behind it to advance your own egotistical objectives. Your ultimate objective is to spread lies and distort reality in order to present yourself as the innocent hero. Avoid being held accountable and steer clear of any accusations that can paint you as the true bad guy. However, no amount of psychological research or description can justify such horrific behavior. I'm sure that there is no justification for such horrible acts, since I have personally witnessed the harm caused by them. When you are among people like that, who plan scheme their wickedness with cold calculation, it feels as though you're peering into the eyes of pure evil. Numerous victims have stated that they would never want this subtle evil to affect anybody else, despite the extent of their own suffering. They wouldn't descend to committing such crimes since their choices are not motivated by suffering, but rather by conscious choices that they repeatedly reinforce through their intentional actions. What are your thoughts on this matter? You may share your opinions in the section below. If you found this episode helpful, kindly subscribe, like, and share it. If so, join us for the next episode as we continue on our journey toward completeness.